Henry Cuellar is a Democratic congressman from Texas who is perhaps the most controversial member of the House Democratic Caucus right now. Not just because his house and office were raided by the FBI earlier this year in connection to some shady business being done in Azerbaijan. Cuellar has denied any wrongdoing, and his lawyers say Cuellar is not a target of the investigation. Not just because the congressman, a Democrat, remember, voted with Trump nearly 70% of the time during Trump's first 2 years in office. 538 once gave him the highest Trump agreement score of any Democratic congressional member. And not just because Cuellar is also the first Democrat to get campaign funding from the notoriously conservative Americans for Prosperity Action, the super PAC founded by the right-wing Koch brothers. In fact, Cuellar's also been endorsed by other Koch-backed groups. No, the biggest reason why Democratic Congressman Henry Cuellar is making headlines right now is that at a time when abortion rights are in greater danger than ever before, this Democratic congressman has opposed codifying Roe v. Wade in law. Because though Cuellar has condemned Justice Alito's draft ruling that suggests the Supreme Court is about to overturn Roe v. Wade, he was the only House Democrat to vote against the Women's Health Protection Act last year, the bill that would codify the protection secured by Roe. And now this right-leaning Democrat is in a primary battle to keep his seat. Next week, he'll face off against 28-year-old Jessica Cisneros, an immigration lawyer and supporter of abortion rights. She narrowly lost the primary to Cuellar back in 2020, but was able to force a runoff this time around. But it's no easy road for Cisneros, despite the fact that Cuellar is an anti-abortion Democrat with a Trump-friendly voting record. He's the one who's got the backing of House Democratic leadership, including Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Majority Whip Jim Clyburn, who went to campaign for him even after the Alito draft leaked.
I believe that we are going to be much more successful with this legislative agenda, much more successful come November than anybody is giving us credit for. And the reason we're going to do that is because we are going to have Democratic nominees like Henry Cuellar to help get things across the finish line for you, for your families, and for your community.
With Roe on the line, some Democrats are telling voters the only way to protect their reproductive rights is to vote blue, and yet it's Cuellar who gets Pelosi and Clyburn's support. These top Dems who say they want to protect abortion rights. That doesn't really make sense to me. But those top Dems are backing Cuellar because they think Jessica Cisneros is too far left and too unelectable. Joining me now is Cuellar's challenger, Jessica Cisneros, Democratic primary candidate for Texas's 28th district. Thank you for coming back on the show. How did the Supreme Court draft ruling overturning Roe that leaked out, how did that change what's at stake in your race in Texas?
I mean, I think here voters in the district already knew what was at stake. I mean, the whole response to SB 8, which is a terrible extreme abortion ban here in Texas, is what led to the House to vote on the Women's Health Protection Act. And then Henry Cuellar sided with Republicans to be the only Democrat to vote against it. So here we already know what's at stake. I think that this has highlighted, especially at the national level, that this race truly goes beyond South Texas. Not only is it our, rights as South Texans and Texas 28th on the line, but I mean, our fate is pretty much tied to the rest of the country. And this is a really reliable blue district. And there's no reason why we should have someone like Henry Cuellar siding with Republicans, not just to vote against the Women's Health Protection Act, but the PRO Act, watering down Build Back Better, actually being an obstacle into why it didn't pass ultimately, and he has just been hindering a lot of the progress and campaign promises that Democrats ran on successfully back in the last election cycle.
So what do you therefore make about, what do you make of Pelosi and Clyburn endorsing Cuellar over you? On the one hand, it makes them look very inconsistent. On the other hand, isn't it a stark reminder of how opposed to you the House Democratic leadership are?
I mean, I can't think of another reason other than the fact that he's an incumbent, because truly it can't be because he's, a reliable vote for Democrats and why people decide to vote for him here. if we can't count on the support of a congressman that's coming from a reliably blue district, a district where under current lines, President Biden won by like 8%, then what are we supposed to expect about, other frontline districts too, right? Are we just supposed to be okay that this is going to be all the pro-choice representatives in the House? I think we saw last week with Joe Manchin on the Senate side, Henry Cuellar can very much be that veto vote on the House side if the Women's Health Protection Act comes up for a vote next, election cycle. So we're just trying to stress that to our voters here. I mean, we've been running on choice. We ran an unabashedly pro-choice campaign last time around, and we got really close despite all the challenges of being a first-time 26-year-old challenger on a grassroots budget. And we came really close, right? So we're trying to finish the job here. Over 50% of voters in our primary voted for a pro-choice candidate. And I just want House leadership to know that they'll have a much better partner with me to try to get all of these campaign promises passed and show people that Democrats deserve their trust and their vote.
So on that note about trying to finish the job, although many border counties did vote for Joe Biden in 2020, Donald Trump did definitely make inroads in South Texas, especially among Latino voters along the border. How can someone like you appeal to some of the more conservative or swing voters in your district? Why are you the right person to represent them rather than Henry Cuellar, who has been representing that seat since 2005?
This area has been a reliably blue district for a very long time, and people are just unsatisfied with the status quo. For almost the 2 decades that Cuellar has been in office, the poverty rate hasn't changed. My hometown of Laredo still has about a 30% poverty rate. There's a high uninsured rate, especially during a pandemic where there was such a huge loss of life and loss of jobs. People really felt it, and they felt, I can't keep voting the same way because circumstances haven't changed. And actually, a few weeks ago, I was down in Zapata County. I spoke to a voter and he said, if you don't win this election, if we don't get the change that we need, I've been voting Democrat for a very long time, but I'm going to vote Republican this time because it feels like my vote doesn't matter if I keep voting the same way and things don't change. I also think people forget that Rep. Escobar, who's representing demographically a similar district as ours, it's very Hispanic, it's very Catholic, a lot of Mexican, people of Mexican origins, and that's a reliably blue district. It's just that Henry Cuellar hasn't been showing people this is all the progress we can make when you actually have someone that's paying attention to the needs of the district.
We just saw, just on a slightly different note, we just saw this horrific hate-based mass shooting in Buffalo, New York, where authorities say the accused gunman was motivated by the racist replacement theory. We know the accused shooter in the 2019 El Paso Walmart shooting, which killed 23 people, most of them Latinos, was also motivated by that racist conspiracy theory. Do you think we've moved on too quickly from these massacres carried out by white supremacists? I'm guessing most Americans have probably never even heard of the El Paso shooting.
I can definitely tell you that people here, and especially along the border, remember that. I mean, I remember leaving a clinic where I was doing some pro bono work and just seeing the news and everyone around me reacting because, I mean, especially with the El Paso shooting, like I said, those are very similar demographics to people here in the district.
Yes.
And, anti-Black and anti-people of color rhetoric is incredibly dehumanizing and it's dangerous. And paired with easy access to military-style weapons, it just leads to murders like the ones we just saw a few days ago. And people just going to go buy groceries in Buffalo, Black people going to go buy groceries in Buffalo. It was the same thing here. Horrific. It was just Latinos going to Walmart to go get groceries or whatever it is that they needed to. And, we need to condemn this rhetoric because it's placing communities like mine and like those in Buffalo and also, the rise in Asian hate crimes as well. Like we're just seeing so many people in so many communities being put in peril for, just political talking points. And that's why it's really upsetting too to see Henry Cuellar also use, similar extreme right-wing rhetoric when he's talking about invasions and crises on the border, because it's our communities that are being put on the front lines and basically putting a target on our backs.
Quick last question, 30 seconds left. You said earlier you want to be a partner to Nancy Pelosi. Is that your way of kind of nudging and winking that you're not going to be a left-wing troublemaker? You're not going to join the squad. You're going to play nice?
I'm going to be working for what really people need to be addressed and the challenges that people face and the struggles that people face. We want a strong Democratic Party. We want people to see that we can govern, that we can lead, that we can shape policy and deliver. And I know that I'm confident that, once we get to Congress, we're going to be excellent working partners because, people need to know what's happening on the border and what we need here so that we can continue earning that trust and support from voters along the border.